Transcendence by a Mortal. Chapter 1. Inception of a Monster. A car is barreling down a hill toward a cliff. The soldier driving the car has forsaken his life for a truth, out of a need to be set free from his ignorance. As the 4x4 approaches the cliff, a monster starts tearing the roof apart. The cliff is Oliver's only chance to know all that he's been burning to know. The monster reaches through the wreckage and pulls at Oliver's battle vest. Oliver tries to hold on to the car and slow the creature down by firing his weapon at the monster, but that doesn't slow it down. The monster rips Oliver out of the car just as the car flips off the cliff. The monster jumps off of the car, and the both of them plummet down the cliffside. As the two fall, the monster holds Oliver close and says,
"Can you see it yet?"
As the air whipped around them, Oliver began to see. Every second that passed by, the two beings became hotter and hotter, until a truth was revealed. There are many ways to perceive this truth, but we will take a journey through time to start from the perspective of one old soldier, whose life might be ending, but his journey is just beginning. Earlier at a New York City ER, Oliver Proster is being rushed in with 5 broken ribs, a punctured lung, a busted spleen, a fractured skull, and a contusion to the heart. The hospital staff are scrambling, trying to gather information about his condition and prepare him for surgery. Oliver is in a fight for his life. He grips the wool linens in excruciating pain. The nurses gently remove his boots, and the blood drips down the sides of the bed as they transfer him to the operating table. By the time they are prepared, it is too late. All of Oliver's strength is not enough to resist slipping into death's warm embrace. 85-year-old Oliver Proster is pronounced dead on July 31st, 2002, at 9:15 p.m. Just as the nurses were going to inform Oliver's superiors, something extraordinary happened. An unknown force that was suppressed for Oliver's entire life just found a way to rise to the surface of his essence and express itself. Unbeknownst to the hospital staff, a new being is born. The new being forms around Oliver's body, restoring its life. The new being throws up Oliver's body over the side of the operating table. The monstrous form of Oliver steps off the operating table, grabs it and flings it across the room toward the doctors. Most of the nurses and doctors flee, but the surgeon is petrified with fear as the monster approaches him. The monster leans over the doctor's shoulder and says,
"Thanks,"
then rips out his bowels and drags them out of the room and down the hall. The monster proceeds to walk down the corridor of the ward, mercilessly slaughtering any of the orderly that cross its path, and then climbs out of a window and walks away from the hospital and slips away into the night. When the hospital staff that work the morning shift arrive, to the scene of blood and gore everywhere they looked, the police are called. When the police arrive, they are also horrified by the death and destruction that was left behind. Later that morning, Oliver Proster wakes to the soft hum of bright fluorescent lights. He wonders to himself, what in the name of Caesar just happened? He lies in a bed at the back corner of a room that has white walls and turquoise floors. A nurse walks into the room, followed by 2 men, the director and assistant director of the Paranormal Defense Commission. Director Mark Hellwaffer says to Oliver,
"How are you, Oliver?"
"I'm fine, sir." "Are the lights too bright?" "My eyes adjust quickly, sir. Where am I?"
"You're in a hospital annex of the 64th Infantry Military Base in Pennsylvania. We'll get to why you're here in a moment. But first, I want to hear your mission report."
The assistant director begins to take notes.
What I remember is that I was going to stake out a suspected grim sanctuary on West 29th Street, Manhattan. I entered the building across the street and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. When I got out, I walked down the hall and toward the window of that floor to begin my surveillance. As I approached the window, 2 men stepped out of a room down the hall. They seemed like normal contractors until they drew firearms. I immediately dove for the staircase to avoid their gunfire. After a few seconds, they ceased fire and ran for the 2nd staircase around the corner. I drew my weapon, then I cautiously pursued them down the hall and up the stairs. When I arrived at the entrance to the roof, 4 floors up, I noticed that the lock had been melted off. In hindsight, I should have called this in for backup. But I knew that if I stalled, they would have escaped. I pushed my way through the semi-melted door and found that there was no one on the roof. I checked the perimeter of the building and found one of them running down the street 7 stories down. I aimed my weapon to stun him. That's the last thing I remember.
Could you ID them?
No, but I suspect they were members of the Grimm and that they knew I would be there. I suspect we have a mole.
I'll call for an investigation. Do you have a way to narrow down a few suspects?
If they're communicating with the Grimm here, they must have some way to contact Nimrod.
Who's Nimrod?
Nimrod is what I call the high priest of the Necron sector for the Grimm. I would like to arrange another stakeout of Nimrod's new church.
Oliver swings his legs out from underneath the covers.
Hold on, Geronimo. There's still another matter for us to discuss.
What is that, sir?
At 2202 today, we received a call that you are at the New York Presbyterian Hospital. You were found nude and 10 feet from the mutilated corpse of Dr. Christopher Rubin.
Oliver strains his brow and says,
That man was killed, but I was left alive?
It was just 1 out of 38 murders that took place this morning.
Did the victims share anything in common?
Hospital staff, patients, security, and visitors were killed. We didn't find any connection.
Were the victims killed in any particular way?
The hospital equipment as well as many of the organs from the victims were used creatively as weapons. But something that was noted is that all of the survivors, including you, were not attacked and were either unconscious or incapacitated patients when they were discovered in the hospital.
I would say that the Grimm is responsible for this. The wanton destruction and mutilation of human flesh is characteristic of their ritualistic scare tactics. However, they've been trying to eliminate me for decades. Why would they leave me alive?
Something isn't right. I want to have you looked over and observed for 72 hours to be sure that you're ready to return to the field. I'll keep in touch with the hospital where the other survivors are being treated and assign another recon mission of Nimrod's church. In the meanwhile, I want you to relax until you're ready to be discharged.
Yes, sir.
The nurse prepares a needle to draw blood from Oliver. Oliver scowls. Markel laughs and says,
Some things don't change. I'm getting too old for this. After 67 years of service in the military, are you considering retirement?
I was joking, sir.
Don't worry, I'll let you keep some.
Thanks.
The vials are filled, and the 3 of them leave the room. Later that day at a New York City library, Marcus Hart is quietly sitting and reading to himself. He is approached by Melissa, his best friend. Marcus stands to greet her, and they both sit down. Then Melissa says softly, "So I see you've returned to your fortress of solitude." While reading his book, Marcus says, "This is the only place I can have peace and quiet. How were your AP exams?" "I think they went well, thank you. You know, I've been talking to my psychology teacher about you, and he's very interested in meeting you." "Is that so? Based on what does he summon me?" "I told him about how smart you were, and how kind you are, and how funny you are, and he would like to meet you. What is kind, funny, and smart to you may not be as such to him. I think he would like you, and he's really cool." "Cool?" "What I mean is that you'd like him." "Why?" "Because you can ask why all you like, and he won't run out of answers." "Interesting. I think you should drop by my high school after class so I can set you two up." "I'll consider it." Don't overthink it, Marcus. Remember that I do not think the same way that humans do. Okay, Marcus, are you doing that sarcastic thing again? Listen, I came to pick you up. Me? Leave my fortress of solitude? I don't know. I want you to come to this awesome program I just discovered. It's called the Third Eye Activity Center. It has all kinds of programs. I'm part of a leadership program they have. Do they have computer programming? Yes, they even work in a version of C with classes. Wow, that sounds interesting. The librarian approaches them and says, "If you're not capable of being quiet, you will be asked to leave." The librarian walks away after scolding them. She is one angry lady. What makes you say that? I can look at her face and tell how she was feeling. It must be a human ability. Well, faces aren't your strong point, but will you come? All right, allow me to check this book out, my dear lady. Well, go right ahead, my good sir. After checking out the book, the two of them head off to the Third Eye Activity Center. As the streets of downtown Manhattan teem with life, the monster lurks through the city. It sneaks through alleyways, over fences, and across streets, disguised by the ignorance of those around it. Every moment that passes, the monster's perception broadens, and its power grows. Suddenly, a nearby amplified voice says,
This is the New York City Police Department. We have the building surrounded. All of you come out with your hands where we can see them.
The monster looks down the alleyway and observes crowds being diverted from down the street. The monster moves down the alley and looks around the corner and finds that the streets have been blockaded. A sinister smile comes across its face. The monster begins to twist and compress its body down in size. The monster makes itself up to appear to be a slender, pale, and nude young lady, and then frantically stumbles past the blockade. The monster, in its new disguise, screams and cries in a feminine tone of voice, "Help me, please help me!" then falls to the ground. The SWAT team runs to learn the situation. Two men attempt to pick the monster up from the ground, but the load is too great. So they call out for help. More officers rush to aid the transport. After trying to lift, the officers try asking for a name and try to persuade it to get up, but it keeps screaming. The monster quickly gets up and begins to violently flail its arms, smacking officers right and left. The SWAT teams draw back, but the monster begins to pounce on them. One after another, the monster ravages and dismembers the police officers. The SWAT teams regroup and draw their weapons. One of the officers says, "Stop, or we will open fire!" The monster stands before them in its nude guise and says in a deep, menacing tone,
I thought you were going to help me.
The monster barrels through the maelstrom of bullets, jumps and scratches the first man's face off. It bludgeons some and literally disarms others. The bullets leave glowing green wounds in the monsters that bend light around them. Two men that are still standing with a battering ram charge at the monster. The monster absorbs the blow, snatches the battering ram and swings it, killing both of the men. There was only one officer left conscious. The monster walks up to him and props the battering ram against his chest. With his last breath, the man says in a state of delirium, "Why should you do this to us now?" The monster replies,
No one ever dies before their time.
The man can no longer breathe with the battering ram pressed into his chest. A group of gun-wielding men exit the building, dressed in golden sweaters and scarves. One of them slowly approaches the blood-stained lady and says, "You have come to our rescue?" The monster turns to its gargantuan form and says,
For the moment, I suppose.
The man goes on to say,
Will you lead us? Guide us? Help us to achieve our goal?
You want dominion over the country.
Yes, that is true. We want to bring peace and order to this world, and we will start here.
The monster finds that it can sense their thoughts and their emotions. It senses that the men believe they are speaking to a manifestation of their deity that brings justice. At this moment, the monster concocts an idea and seizes the opportunity. A man pushes his way to the front of the crowd and says,
I am leader here. Right hand, you have led us into enough trouble. You have failed us.
"How dare you? None of you could do what I have done."
You would dare challenge the gods?
I do not challenge the gods. I am telling you to be silent.
The gods have come to lead us, and you will step aside.
I've heard enough from you. We must leave this place or the police forces will find us again.
Everyone, to the jeeps!
All the men and the monster hurried to their vehicles. The monster shrinks down slightly and hops in the back of one jeep with the right hand and Zebzinon in the front. They all took off. While driving through the streets of Manhattan, the man says to the monster,
We split up to avoid suspicion.
The monster leans into the front seat and says,
Oh, thank you. I would not have suspected that without your perspicacious insight. So, Zebzinon, what brings you to this neck of the woods?
I see you know my name.
I learn all the time. Now answer my question.
We were in that establishment to settle a small discrepancy.
What sort of discrepancy?
One of our subsidiaries thought that they could diverge from us. So we came to teach them a lesson of obedience.
So you thought your problem was one you could solve with a gun?
Guns and words.
You're splitting hairs now. But tell me how your organization intends to accomplish its goals.
This colony of the Third Eye acquires its funds through our subsidiaries, such as our tax firms, shelters, and free youth programs. It's a slow growth of capital, but it's steady. And I'm thinking that we should make connections with local police departments as a next step. Though my constituents do not have much faith in me at the moment. They will see.
You really do need my help.
I see you don't have faith in me either.
With my help, you'll have this nation under your heel in no time.
I appreciate your aid, but know that I will accomplish my goal with or without you.
Are the leaders of the other colonies as self-confident as you?
The other two colonies are basically free-love hippie communes. They just sit there in Sicily and Alexandria, waiting for everyone else to join them. I don't agree with that. If you want something, you must go through hell to get it.
I see. You make war, not love.
In a sense.
What do the other colonies say of that?
They ignore me and refuse to share their vast resources with me. But I can do perfectly fine without them.
If they do not support you, then why do you affiliate with them?
Because I believe in the idea of the Third Eye. The ability to perceive the need for change that others can't and have the will to pursue that change.
Change means a lot to you, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
I suppose you're not ready to hear it.
We will soon reach our headquarters, my lord.
The monster quickly pulls the right hand back into the driver's seat. The car comes to a sudden bumpy halt, and the monster says with a calm and collected rage,
Don't call me Lord.
Trying to remain calm, the right hand says,
What should I call you?
Call me Facilitator. Now drive.
The car starts again, and Zebzinon says,
What was the meaning of that?
Do the bacteria ask why termites eat wood?
What?
Again, not ready.
That was a test?
More of a spontaneous outburst. They're my favorite kind of outburst.
If you step out of line like that again, you'll be sorry.
You don't have to be afraid of me.
I'm not afraid of you.
If you were not afraid, we would not be having this conversation.
Zebzinon scowls, then turns back into his seat and sits quietly for the rest of the trip. Their jeep pulls up to an active community center. The monster says,
You operate out of a children's activity center?
It has a secure layer underneath, and it is the last place anyone would think to look.
Our plans will be ruined if we remain here for too long. We will need a new headquarters.
The jeep drives around the building and parks in a garage of the facility. The three of them exit the jeep. Zebzinon walks up a flight of stairs to enter the facility and says,
We must enter the lower chamber and begin the initiation ceremony.
The three of them walk through a corridor down a long, old and curved staircase, then arrive at the inner layer. It was vacuous and lit by new electrical circuits that run up the walls into the elaborate ceiling lights. This place used to be a wine cellar before the Third Eye acquired it almost 100 years ago. Sebzenon sits upon a throne that is in the middle of a stage that is in the center of the room. The monster walks up the stairs towards Sebzenon and says,
Let me ask you a question. What sacrifices are you willing to make to change the world?
If all goes as planned, we won't have to sacrifice anything.
Wrong answer.
I sense you have hostility toward my authority.
Authority? Ludicrous. I'm hostile toward your stupidity.
You should be more humble in the presence of a king.
You speak to someone who is returned from the other side. I am no longer restrained by human boundaries. And from my experience, I can say that it is you who will be humbled.
The others are arriving.
The Third Eye faculty enter the sanctuary and gather around the throne. Sebzenon announces,
We have all gathered here for a great purpose. We have gathered in this sanctuary to honor the gods by initiating this being as a member of the Third Eye. Through him, we will have a new era of civilization, a better one. I turn to you now, scion of the gods, and ask you to kneel. The monster kicks over the throne, knocking Sebzenon to the ground. Sebzenon screams, What is the meaning of this? The monster steps on the toppled throne and says,
You might as well drop it. I know you have wanted me gone from the moment you saw me. Keeping you around would only jeopardize my plans.
I am king, and I command you to leave now!
You were a king, only because they made you one. And now you are but a fool in king's clothing.
Sebzenon looks to the crowd and exclaims,
Do something! Fire upon him!
The crowd of Third Eye faculty does nothing but stand quietly.
You're using them. You knew this would happen.
The monster smiles and says,
This charade is over.
The monster steps off of the throne and approaches the angry and scared Sebzenon. Sebzenon pounds on the stage and screams. The monster lifts him by the throat and says,
Your pain will soon be over, little man.
Sebzenon's skin suddenly turns white and appears dead, but the monster notices something novel. He could feel Sebzenon's thoughts and feelings clearer than before. The monster found that it could absorb Sebzenon's brain waves as well as all of the chemical and kinetic energy in his cells. Sebzenon's body disintegrated in the monster's hand. Once Sebzenon was a pile of dust on the stage. The monster turns to the right hand and says,
So show me around this place.
Upstairs above the secret lair of the Third Eye militia, the Third Eye Activity Center is filled with children eager to learn and play. In the computer lab, Marcus and Melissa are practicing their computer programming skills. Melissa leans over to Marcus and says, I think it's going to be a while before I really understand this C with classes stuff. It's really quite simple for me. Well, not everyone is as talented as you. Mayhaps I can help you with your program. The boy to Marcus's right leans over to him and says, Hey, come here. I am here. That comment is redundant. He wants you to lean toward him so he can whisper to you. I see. Marcus leans in. What is it that you must say in so clandestine a manner? What? Never mind. Is that your girlfriend? What? No. Why would you infer such a thing? No, I'm sorry. Is she your sister or something? She's my best friend. Then why are you so steamed? Do you like her or something? Of course I do. She's my best friend. No, I mean, do you like her? You have made a grammatical error.
Oh my God, you're a computer, aren't you?
I am certainly not a computer, though that is an interesting concept. What? Do you even like girls? I tried to respect them. Do you want to go out with them? Go out where? With whom?
No, stop playing around. Do you like girls?
Okay. We're having a failure of communication. Melissa leans back in her chair and says to the boy, Please, can I focus on the computer, please?
I'm sorry, it's just you have an awesome friend. I've never heard of someone like him. What's your name?
Melissa smiles and says, "My name's Melissa."
Cool. So, dude, what's your name?
"I am ordained Marcus."
My name's Andrew. You have a great vocabulary.
"Well, thank you, my good man."
You're welcome there, partner. What are you working on there?
"It is a program that takes input regarding variables of height, basic behavior patterns, and reproductive habits, then uses the input to determine the species of the creature described."
Wow! How old are you, Marcus?
"I am 16 years of age."
You're 16, super smart, and don't have a girlfriend? That's insane!
"It's not insane. I have never engaged in such things and never will."
You've never had a girlfriend? Dude, you better get to work.
"Are you listening to me?"
No!
"And why not?"
Because I don't listen to people who don't have girlfriends.
"What kind of reasoning is that?"
He's joking.
Andrew picks up his book bag and coat, then says,
Do you two come here every day?
"Well, I do, but Marcus will come if he decides he enjoys this place.
What do you think? Will you come back?
Well, this place is impressive, but I must go find out if they have a robotics class as well. Excuse me." As the two boys walk out of the room together, Andrew turns to Marcus and says,
I swear on all that is cool, I'm gonna get you some girls and I'm gonna hook you up.
"I am not certain of what you are referring, but I will assume that it is something that I want no part of."
I'm telling you, man, if you want to hang out with me, it's non-optional. Non-optional.
"Not so loud. We're in the hall now. Besides, hanging with you for whatever lewd crimes you intend to commit is the last thing I will do." Andrew snickers and says,
All right, man. I'll see you tomorrow, right?
"Until the morrow." And the two boys split their separate ways. Marcus walks down a long corridor looking for the program manager and hears a door open around the corner. Someone says,
"And here is the administrator's office."
Marcus thinks that that could be the program manager, so he walks around the corner and sees no one. He walks past each door, surveying to his left and to his right, looking for the program manager. He finds an office that says Program Manager on it, but Marcus looks inside and finds that no one is there. Marcus closes the door and begins to hear voices coming from a room down the hall. So Marcus walks down the hall and sees Administrator's office printed on the door. He opens the door to see a man in a golden sweater and scarf talking to someone in a chair that has its back turned toward Marcus. The man in the golden sweater turns and says,
You can't be in here. Let's go outside the office and talk.
But then a great, deep, reverberating voice says,
No. I want to talk to the boy.
The chair turns around, and it's the monster staring Marcus in the face. Marcus frantically tries to leave the room, but the right hand, a man of significantly greater size and strength, blocks it. Marcus screams, "Help! Help!" The monster says,
No one can hear you from here. But go on, though it may annoy the right hand. I enjoy it.
Marcus freezes. The monster growls and smiles, then says,
Is there something I can help you with?
Marcus composes himself, then says nervously, Your physical structure suggests that you are an animal of prey.
I am not an animal. I am beyond that now.
Are you going to kill me?
Should I?
I deduce that you want me alive.
Why is that, Sherlock?
You said you wanted to talk to me.
And so I have, but you can be of further use to me than a mere conversation or dinner. I sense a burning desire to rule in you. What if I could give you that opportunity?
Rule what?
The world, as your own nation.
What? How?
You be the face of my organization, and in return, I'll teach you, I'll groom you to lead, and when you're ready, it will all be yours.
Why don't you lead it?
Because the second I saw you, I saw a great power just waiting to bloom. I want that power by my side. You're a regular Alexander the Great, kid, and I want to see you conquer the world.
I appreciate you saying that, but I am no Alexander the Great.
I also sense great anger and hatred in you.
It is because of the humans. For the most part, they are the bane of my life.
No one is responsible for your emotions but you. But I can teach you to think clearly and escape the mental prison you now live in. I will make a king out of you.
And what do you stand to gain from this?
I want to see the humans squirm their way to a new stage in their evolution. And we can give them the impetus to do so.
You think you can control the evolution of the entire human race? The monster leans forward over the desk and says,
I know I can. When I do, there will be no more humans. Think about it, Marcus. No more pain, no more lies, only peace, and you can have it all.
How do you know my name? I never told you my name.
I can sense it, Marcus.
You're a telepath.
You could call it that. But more importantly, do you want the help I can give you, or not?
I am very dubious of you right now.
You're afraid.
I am certainly not afraid.
Yes, you are. But that's good. You should be afraid. Though the choices are, be a part of the greatest event in human history, or return to your aunt's apartment and allow your soul to languish away until you die.
What exactly would I have to do?
Face enemies that are so powerful and horrifying you'll wish you were dead.
You underestimate me, creature. I will help you face these enemies, and in return, you will help me to claim dominion over human civilization.
I knew you were up for the challenge.
What is to be done first?
Return home for now. Eat, pray, love, do whatever you need to do in order to be prepared for your first lesson.
I do not love, but what is my first lesson?
When you return tomorrow, I will teach you to think independently. You will no longer rely on the stigmas and petty judgments of man. You will learn to make your own perception of life.
I already think devoid of human stigmas and judgment.
There's always room for improvement. To accomplish your goal, you're going to live with us from now on, and you might have to do things that will painfully stretch your perception. Now get out of here. You have an appointment to return here to me at 2 p.m. tomorrow.
What is your name?
You can call me Mentor.
Yes, Mentor. Marcus turns to the right hand, who moves aside from the door. Marcus says, "Thank you," then leaves the room, eager to prepare for his next encounter with the monster.
I shall make the appointment with the front desk.
Wait. I sense 3 men in a slick black vehicle pulling up to the side of the building with a message. One of the men is pulling a projectile weapon out through the sun door of the van.
They hear glass breaking and people screaming at the lobby of the building.
Go and bring me that message.
The right hand runs out of the room, around the corner, and down the hall. When the right hand arrives at the lobby, the third eye faculty are trying to prevent a panic, and there is glass everywhere. He notices a small, piping cold metallic canister on the ground. With a series of gentle kicks, he transports the canister down the hall and to the administrator's office. The right hand lifts it using his scarf and enters the room. He walks up to the monster's desk and places it down in front of the monster, then shakes his hands as he steps back. The monster takes the canister and pops it open with his thumb. The monster removes a glossy, thin blue scroll from the steaming canister and opens it. The monster quickly reads it and says,
This is an invitation from Velma.
Velma, what does she want from us?
Information, most likely.
This is not good. Without Zebzanon, she will become suspicious of us, and may not do business with us anymore. We would have no weapons then.
Oh, Thomas, you wound me.
I apologize, my lord. I'm sorry. Facilitator.
I will take this situation and make it work for us. All we will need are 16 armed men and baby oil.
I'm sorry, did you say baby oil?
Yes, she's very strong and has vast resources, but her weakness is her overactive sex drive.
How do you know this?
I have had many encounters with her.
So she is familiar with you?
Not in this form. But I think it's about time we had a close encounter.
We mustn't threaten her, though. She is temperamental.
A little baby oil will take care of everything. The invitation gives directions to a private jet that will fly us to Madrid, Spain.
What if this is a trap?
I doubt that. This canister was designed to intimidate her slightly. She probably knows that there is a new leadership in the Third Eye, and she wants to know more about the new management. I know that you're reluctant to go, but we're going to Spain.
Yes, facilitator.
We can learn a lot from her, and besides, she can be very generous. She will in all likelihood give us a new headquarters if we ask nicely, or she'll execute us. One or the other.
Later that evening, the monster mobilizes his forces into the garage and has 16 armed faculty loaded into 3 jeeps, with 3 drivers in a 3rd jeep to take all of the vehicles back to base after their airborne departure. They drove to a section of JFK Airport that had a private jet waiting for them. The monster tears open the gate, and 16 men quickly leave the jeeps and move out calmly onto the runway. They board the aircraft before anyone could react. They strapped themselves in. The monster was disguised as a blonde male bodybuilder, wearing a pair of sweatpants, and Zebzanon's elastic crown as a belt. There were armed guards in strange black combat armor that invigilated their every move as they sat and waited for the plane to take off. The jet begins to move down the runway. The monster could feel the movement of the plane interacting with its powers. It began to accelerate the jet faster. Everyone on the plane became alarmed, and the jet immediately took off. When the plane slows to a constant velocity, the monster laughs and says,
Sorry, I'm impatient.
Chapter 2. Learn Thy Enemy. 5 hours later, while flying to Spain to meet Velma, the right hand says to the monster,
I've heard that Velma can rip Humvees apart with her bare hands, and that even the military is afraid of her.
Those things are true, but we have baby oil, so we'll be just fine.
I have the baby oil in my vest pocket, but how can she do those things?
Velma received a gene therapy that changed her biology. This gave her inhuman strength, durability, and stamina. It also might explain why she is such a horny girl.
Doing lascivious things is against our beliefs. Will we have to do anything sexual as a part of your plan?
No. You leave that to me. You guys wouldn't know what you're doing.
The right hand has a confused look on his face.
You're blushing. That's funny. How did you become a part of this organization?
The right hand looks down and says,
I was rejected from my home by my mother when I was 23. My mother told the police that I attacked my younger brother, which wasn't true. We had an argument. I barely touched him. When the police arrived, I pleaded my case, but I was still removed from my home and thrown in jail for 8 weeks. When I got out of jail, it was 1979. I had no job, nowhere to go. I was homeless and desperate. I started panhandling in front of churches, but they would not allow me to stay there anymore. So I wandered the streets aimlessly, trying to figure out where my next meal would come from. I found a church with a soup kitchen. When I walked to the church, I found 7 men dressed in golden sweaters and scarves threatening a drug dealer that was selling by the church. I thought they were some kind of gang, so I walked right by. When I went inside, I saw several of the hobo-looking fellows going into a back room. Each of them shook the hands of the volunteer standing by the door as they went in. I wanted to know what was going on, so I ran to the door and asked, "What is in there?" And this man replied, "Salvation." The man extends his hand to me. So I shook his hand and I walked inside. He really believed that I could find salvation in that room. And I did. That is when I met Zebzanon. He He entered the room with a confidence and an air about him that made me think he was a man who could do great things. He preached of a new world where all would be at peace. I desperately wanted to have peace in my life. I was surprised that someone of such power would address us personally, so I decided to join him in his endeavors. After a few years of serving the Third Eye, Zebzanon made me his right hand for my devotion. He showed me a whole new world. I knew from that point on everything was going to change, that we would be enlightened to a new truth. I learned their gods, their mysticism, and I found that my faith was no longer bound by the same religious limitations. We even took trips to worship with the Grimm, and there I learned things that I would never have imagined possible. I've seen into parts of this universe that are normally imperceptible, and have lived to tell the tale. I am so grateful for the experiences that I've had on my spiritual journey. And yet still I am lost, even with all that I have seen. I would like to know what meaning the gods have given my life.
Only you can give your life meaning, Thomas. And I assure you that you haven't seen anything yet.
Yes, Facilitator.
We're descending. We must be approaching Velma's stronghold.
The plane lands on a private landing strip. The Third Eye faculty exit the plane and are met by a small army of soldiers in black combat gear that appear suddenly after they disable their cloaking field. The soldiers cloak everyone in their field and escort the Third Eye away from the air dock. Velma's soldiers and the Third Eye quietly make their way to Velma's palace. They stop at a gate to acquire permission to enter. The gate opens and they approach Velma's fortress. The immense doors of the palace open and the Third Eye enter through the doorway and walk down a long hallway. Another set of doors are opened by 2 guards. They walk through the doors into a large room and find Velma lying upon a divan. They are followed by more armed guards. Velma sits up and says with her Russian accent, "Hello, little man." The monster affects a Spanish accent and says,
Hello, Velma.
"I'm so glad you received my invitation. With the presentation that went into your invitation, I could not stay away." "I love Spanish men." "And I love hateful tall women. Let us focus on business before I eat you up, you sexy little man."
As you wish, senorita.
"I heard that the Third Eye was involved in a couple gruesome massacres. It doesn't seem to be something the Third Eye would be capable of. What happened?"
What makes you say that we are responsible?
"I have informants in the United States government, and we are aware that the NYPD was going to move in on you during your business with the Vidum tax firm. The next thing I heard, all 22 of those men were all killed in a massacre. The Third Eye was there, but was not responsible for the massacre. By the time the Third Eye left the building, it was over. None of you know what happened to those police officers?" "No, you can trust us. And I got you a present." "Ah, thank you. What is it?" The right hand pulls out the baby oil from his vest, and in its disguise, the monster takes the baby oil and squirts the oil over its own chest, then spreads it over its body. Velma shouts with joy, "Ah, honey baby, you have just become my favorite customer." The monster continues to spread the oil, gyrates slightly, and says, "What other gangs purchase from you?" Oh, Critintel, the Giovanni family, the Trap, the Grimm, and even United States government does business with me." "Oh, I think you're hypnotizing me. Tell me more about the Critintel." "They're a gang based in Washington, D.C. that buys parts from me and then engineers custom equipment for themselves. They're growing quickly by establishing government connections and recruiting from California." "Oh, I just want to eat you alive." "I know the Grimm is making many expansions in New York City. I think they found something. What do you know about this?" "The Grimm is looking for a boy. This boy is the key to something that they need. Papi chulo. I'm looking for a new headquarters in the city. Do you know where I can find one?" "I can evacuate a warehouse on 88th and 2nd Avenue for you.
But what will you give me if I do?
Do you want to touch me?
Oh, God, yes! Velma jumps down from her divan and walks seductively to the monster and sighs with relief as she caresses and fondles the monster's body.
There's one more thing I want to ask you for.
Anything.
I want to talk to Klosov.
Velma suddenly grabs the monster by the throat with a vice-like grip and says, "What do you want with Klosov?"
I have a proposition for you.
What kind of proposition?
I'm going to bring humanity to a juncture in its evolution, and Klosov's gene therapy is the key to my success.
How do you know of Klosov's gene therapy?
You think you're the only one with spies?
Velma releases the monster's throat and says, "Forgive me. A girl must protect her comrades.
Can you connect us, Velma?
I'll let him know that you want to speak with him.
Where do I find him?"
He'll find you." Velma lies back onto her divan and says, "We're done. You can take the jet back to JFK. See you later, my sexy little man."
Yes, my blue flower. Continue to bask in your ambience,
The monster says as it exits the room, and Velma laughs. They are escorted back to the jet. On the plane, the monster turns intangible for just a moment, causing the oil on its body to drop through the monster and onto the floor. Once everyone is strapped in, the plane takes off. The right hand says, "Though a bit strange, your plan worked excellently, Facilitator."
We know much more about our enemies now. Now all we need is Marcus.
Why him, Facilitator?
I know he's in the rough now, but trust me, no one else can pull it off.
Yes, Facilitator. Velma said that the Grim was looking for a boy. Could that boy be Marcus?
I do not know, but I intend to find out.
Why is this boy so important?
The Grim has opened 3 new sanctuaries in Manhattan within the last week. If this boy calls for that much additional force to the Grim, then he is important to me.
I have done a lot of exploring with the Grim. I can tell you that the Grim is very superstitious.
I have seen what the Grim is capable of, and we will take them seriously.
Yes, Facilitator.
Whatever they're looking for, they must be close to it.
17 hours later, at the residence of Marcus and his aunt. Marcus, having decided to join the monster, to aid it in its scheme, in exchange for the full fulfillment of his deepest fantasy, elimination of the human race, creation of a new non-violent species of creature, and dominion over the earth. The monster has told Marcus that to have this power over Earth, he must leave his aunt's home and learn to think independently. So Marcus, who has lived with his aunt and has had her by his side his whole life, quickly packs a few changes of clothes into a book bag and runs off to tell his aunt the news. Marcus runs into the living room where his aunt is reading a book and says, "Auntie Faith, I'm embarking to pursue my destiny." "Well, you seem excited. I'm going to learn how to be more of a leader, and once I do, I'll be in charge of this planet." "I'm glad you found something you like at that program. Just be back by 6 for dinner," she says as Marcus runs out of the door. Marcus traverses the subway system of New York City to meet the monster and begin his journey. Marcus walks with a pep in his step, knowing that his fantasy will soon become a reality. Marcus enters the Third Eye Activity Center with a royal air about him. He approaches the staff that are sitting behind the counter and says, "I'm here to attend a 2 p.m. engagement." "Are you Marcus Part?" "Marcus Hart." "I have Marcus Part written down here for a 2 p.m. appointment with the administrator." "My aunt must have given you that name. My actual name is Marcus Hart, and that is my appointment." "I'll fix it now." "How do you spell your last name?" "Hart. H-E-A-R-T. "Okay, you can go in now. You walk down the hallway, turn the corner, and it'll be the last room to your left." "Yes, I am familiar. Thank you." Marcus heads to the corridor, where he meets 2 large men that escort him to the room where he first met the monster. The 2 men remain outside the room as Marcus enters, and they close the door behind him.
Marcus sits in a chair in front of the monster's desk. While reclining casually, the monster says,
Hello, Marcus. I'm glad to see you made it.
Yes, thank you, Mentor. What is the purpose of the men outside this room?
They're here to protect you.
From what?
You never know. The threat might even be yourself.
I do not understand.
You will. We might have to do something about your manner of speech.
For what reason?
Who taught you to speak that way?
I suppose my great-grandmother.
She has made you to sound as if you were plucked straight out of Victoria-era London.
I do not see a problem.
To attain what you want, you must give your allies and enemies alike the right impression.
What humans think is of no consequence.
More often than not, what humans think will mean the difference between life and death for you. You're going to be running into a lot of men with big guns and big egos. If they think they can step all over you, they just might. But if you present yourself as a respectable person who demands respect, doors will open to you.
What does that have to do with sounding like an Englishman?
It's not about being English. It's about you not knowing how to talk to people and stubbornly refusing to learn.
I know how to speak perfectly well. If others who can speak English cannot comprehend my speech, then it is for them to learn, not for me to deign to their level.
I know that you have done extensive research on notorious serial killers. What do you know about Charles Manson?
Charles Manson was a man who orchestrated multiple homicides during the late 1960s, including those at the home of film star Roman Polanski and his wife.
Tell me what he was like, Charles Manson.
Charles Manson is a man with small build, but has a keen ability to manipulate others. He would often use sex, drugs, intimidation, and deception to lure us in. One time we were in front of a bar, and there was this big biker guy out front. Charles walked up to him and said something to him that got him pissed off. I mean, this guy was mad. This huge guy was ready to go off. He looked like he was going to hurt Charles. But Charles starts talking to him some more, and within minutes they start laughing and hugging each other like the best of friends. Now, that is a quote from an acolyte of Manson's named...
Great. Bottom line is, he knew how to talk to people. He was able to look into someone and figure out how to lure them into being his followers and how to talk to his potential enemies to diffuse conflicts. That is what you must learn to do if you are to succeed.
You want me to learn from a serial murderer?
Yes, damn it, yes! Do you see how your judgments are preventing you from seeing your goal clearly?
You're suggesting that I should be more objective.
I'm telling you that you must be much more open-minded. You left all notion of right and wrong behind when you walked through that door.
What do you mean?
I mean that we are not going to make judgments on things anymore. We accept what comes our way, and we use what works the best. If you keep saying no, if you try to fight change, you will only suffer and be left behind.
Marcus looks down and goes into intense thought.
Another thing is that you use the word human as if you are not human.
When I use the term humans or human, it is implied I am referring to normal humans.
I think you are trying to imply that you are not human.
I am a different species of human.
You are a unique person, but you are the same species of human as all the rest.
Humans are ignorant, arrogant, panicky, foolish, sexually oriented apes, and I am certainly not to be confused with them.
I can assure you that you are as ignorant, arrogant, and sexually oriented as any boy your age.
There is much I can stand to learn. Therefore, I could be considered ignorant, maybe even arrogant, but I am not sexual in any way.
What would be wrong with being sexual?
It's disgraceful.
Why?
The very act of human reproduction is an affront to all manner of common decency and intelligence. When I'm in charge, no one will ever be defiled that way again.
Have you never done anything sexual? No judgments, remember?
No!
Then how do you know that it is bad?
You speak like a human now.
I was a man once, and I was a fool for not telling the woman I loved how I felt when I had the chance.
Why didn't you?
My father!
The monster screams as it leaps out of the chair and smashes the desk in two. The monster lifts one half of the desk over its head and throws it across the room. The monster continues to scream as it slowly claws the sides of its hairless head with its razor-sharp talons. Marcus is speechless as he witnesses the rage and torment of his new mentor. The monster eventually composes itself.
We will be leaving soon to go to our new headquarters. You may wait in the activity center until we are ready to leave.
Marcus silently walks out of the room. The monster kicks the second half of the desk into a wall and then goes downstairs to have the right hand arranged for the faculty's relocation to their new base. When all is arranged, the right hand retrieves Marcus from the waiting area on the monster's behest and escorts him to their garage. All of the men not working in the activity center are given weapons and mobilize into jeeps. Marcus boards a jeep with the monster at the front of the group. As the garage door slowly opens, Marcus begins to recite his own monologue. After so many years of being suppressed by the humans, I have found a way to rise from the ashes of failure and disgrace, to lay claim to my destiny. I will not fail again, and I will not relent until all that stood in my way fall before me. These ignorant, pathetic humans have not even the slightest inkling of what is happening right in their presence, and that will be their downfall. The jeeps move out of the garage and head off to their destination. As they are driving down the street, the monster asks,
Where did you learn such contempt for human beings?
I have lived under the boot of these foolish, disgusting creatures for my entire life. I realized that I had to do something when I was 5 years of age.
What have they done to deserve such scorn?
It is not only what they have done to me, but what they do in general. They kill, they defile each other, they are intelligent, but they are irrational. They must be stopped. If they cannot be subdued, then they must be destroyed.
We are not going to capture them, Marcus. We're going to push them to change themselves.
I don't think humans are capable of that.
You'd be surprised what humans are capable of when their life is on the line.
And if they cannot change?
They will.
How?
We will come to them in their darkest hour and offer them a way out. They would be insane not to take it eventually.
Marcus looks down and goes into deep thought. What is it we will offer them in their time of need?
We will offer them Close-Off's gene therapy. It will mutate those who take it into a new being. A being that is availed to more of the tools of life and will be freed from the fear of using them.
Yes, I have waited so long for this.
Your wait will soon be over.
When the jeeps pull up to the large warehouse, the monster telepathically signals all of the Third Eye faculty to remain quiet. Marcus asks quietly, "What is wrong?"
There are men in the warehouse. They're Giovanni's men. And they're here stealing boxes from the warehouse. They're loading everything into a van. Marcus, I want you to move with the right hand and learn from him.
Will I have to use a weapon?
Not at this point. All you need to do is observe the way that the right hand speaks to his enemy. If they ask you who you are, keep quiet and let the right hand do all the talking for now. If bullets should fly, just stay back and out of the line of fire. Understand?
Very well, but this is a bit strange. The monster has the whole group move into the warehouse through the east entrance. They follow the monster into the warehouse. After moving surreptitiously around the pillars of cargo, the monster signals everyone telepathically to stop. The monster says telepathically.
There they are. Marcus, along with the right hand, will confront them directly, and the rest of you will surround them. I will move in if they become hostile.
This is trippy.
Time to move.
Though he's close to nervous as they approach the gun-wielding gangsters, Marcus walks confidently and calmly with the right hand toward the thieves. The right hand says to the thieves,
Excuse me.
As soon as those words were spoken, the thieves ran for their van and took off. The right hand says,
They ran away. Cowards.
whatever they were after wasn't very important to them.
I am curious to know what they took.
The monster, followed by Marcus and the right hand, look into the open crates.
It's dragon skin.
The monster lifts one of them out of the box. It looks like a scaly foam vest.
It is armor. It is state-of-the-art. It was developed for the U.S. military, but someone is buying it from Velma. We will take some for the third eye.
Is it wise to steal from Velma?
My power grows by the minute. By the time that she suspects anything, we'll have this whole planet under our heel.
Yes, facilitator.
But this is stealing!
You mustn't judge, Marcus. This entire country was built on stolen land and with stolen people, but I don't judge them, because to say that they are wrong is to say that I want to be right, but I don't want to be right. That's a human cage.
Interesting. All of the Third Eye members adorn their new armor. A sleeping cot is set up in one of the large rooms of the warehouse for Marcus. Marcus approaches the room and asks, Is this where I am to sleep?
Yes, for now.
It doesn't have much cushioning.
Have you ever slept on a cot before?
In kindergarten, for nap time, yes.
This journey will not always be comfortable, but from an uncomfortable state comes change.
I understand. So what is our next move?
Your next move is to make some new friends, Marcus.
Make friends with whom?
The gang lords are the ones that we must deceive. Once you have established a relationship with each of them, we can begin to deceive them and pit them against one another.
I see. How many gang lords do we have to contend with?
5. Crit Intel, Giovanni's gang, the Grim, Trap, and good old Uncle Sam for now.
Once we have fraternized with and deceived these gangs and countries, what would we have accomplished?
Chaos.
I think that chaos is the last thing the world needs. If we are patient and rise at the right moment, we could build our civilization without having to cause any chaos.
It is the only way to give them the push that they need.
I think that resorting to chaos and murder is lazy and disorganized.
What would you have us do?
I say that the idea of transcending humanity is alluring enough. We should spread the idea of transcendence across the country somehow.
You can't assume that because you think it is a good idea, that everyone else will as well. Remember when I said that you must look into someone to find out what they need to be lured in? I know what they need. Trust me.
Yes, Mentor. Marcus goes into deep thought.
You know there's something very decent about you, Marcus. But you cannot allow your heart to get in the way of your vision.
I suppose you were right about me. I was raised by humans, and so now I have this myopic view of the world.
That can be changed. You must merely be willing to learn more than what you have been taught.
Thank you, Mentor. Marcus walks into his room to think. The right hand walks up to the monster and asks,
Do you think he'll be all right?
He has a lot on his plate, but he'll be fine. Marcus.
Yes, Mentor?
We'll be taking a trip to Giovanni's after your dinner, around 10 p.m.
He is one of your crime bosses that you mentioned earlier?
Yes. Your job will be to tell him that we would like to start a business relationship with him. I'm sure he'll like you if you can get your act together.
What do you mean by get my act together?
You've acted very confident in front of Giovanni's men earlier, even though you were scared. I'm sure you can do it again.
I will try my best.
You're very talented. They'll probably be impressed.
I'm not that talented.
Learn to accept a compliment. A crack like that could get you killed in Giovanni's penthouse.
A penthouse, you say? Well, I'll be on my best behavior, Mentor.
Good.
You think he can handle it?
Yes.
I do not.
Then you best pretend.
Yes, Facilitator.
Chapter 3. Politics. 6 hours later, Marcus had enjoyed a dinner of chicken with rice and beans. The right hand walks into the doorway of Marcus's new room and asks,
Is there anything else you would like me to order for you from the restaurant?
No, thank you. I am satiated.
I hope you are ready to handle meeting with Giovanni.
I do not know how to relate to a criminal, but if it means that I can become a king, I will try. The monster, who is sitting in the background on a stack of crates, says,
Criminals are those who work against the established order. To the public, we are criminals. The better question is to ask, how do you relate to his personality?
Ah, yes. I see.
Giovanni is someone you speak to in a very direct way to avoid confusing him. And don't look around the room while he's talking, as you like to do. Otherwise, you'll be fine. What you're going to say to him is that you want to make a business relationship with him. Tell him that you can guarantee to buy 5 kilos a month.
5 kilos of what?
Cocaine, perhaps heroin.
Hold on one moment. Do you want me to arrange a purchase of drugs?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm asking you to do.
My goodness! How low are we going to stoop before we reach our goal?
There go those judgments again.
Well, you have to draw the line somewhere.
Well, you go right ahead and draw your line, Marcus. But I have long since drawn my last line.
Where did you come from?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Why not?
Because I'm here now, and that is what I focus on.
Without knowledge of your past, you may not have a good future.
We shall see about that. We will be leaving for Giovanni's in 5 minutes. Be ready then.
Wait, you said that you were once a man. If that is true, how did you become like this?
There are some things, Marcus, that man is not meant to know. You would be well advised to drop it.
Marcus remains quiet, but his curiosity only intensifies. Marcus looks at the right hand inquisitively, and the right hand gives the I don't know gesture. In a few moments, the monster, Marcus, and the right hand board a jeep and leave the warehouse, heading off to Giovanni's penthouse. Whilst riding in the jeep, the monster says,
What I want you to say is that we want to forge a business relationship with him, and that we can guarantee a purchase of 5 kilos a month.
Yes, I recall.
And we will give them all the revenue in exchange for protection.
Protection from what?
If that question is asked, then tell them that you are trying to form alliances with the other gangs in New York, and if they should respond with hostility, we will need the help of Giovanni's men. If they ask about a man named Zebzanon, all you tell them is that he is gone and that you are the new leader. All the rest I leave to you.
But that implies that I am responsible for his disappearance.
As a leader, you must be confident in whatever you say.
Well, what happened to him?
He was a foolish leader. His people became wary of him, and the rest is history.
The third eye killed him? What if they become wary of me?
They won't if you listen to me.
Yes, Mentor.
Will you retain what I have told you?
Yes.
Good.
30 minutes later, they are pulling up to a tall, luxury-style building. The monster disguises itself as a muscular, cut brown man, and still wearing the sweatpants, black sleeveless t-shirt, along with Zebzanon's elastic crown as a belt. Marcus gets out of the car, looks back and sees the monster in its guise and says, "How did you do that?"
Silence, and focus on the task at hand.
Marcus scowls, turns around and walks into the building, followed by the monster and the right hand. They walk into the elevator and take it to the top floor. They get off the elevator and walk down the hall to a large door, guarded by 2 armed men. Marcus approaches the armed guards and says, "I would like to speak to Giovanni."
Piss off!
"I beg your pardon?"
I said piss off, you bloody little wanker!
The guard aims his weapon at Marcus's head.
Think he's got a hearing problem,
Says the second guard. The monster says telepathically,
Do not lose your composure, Marcus. Just stand your ground.
Marcus stares into the guard's eyes and says, "I am here for a business relationship with Giovanni."
I'm gonna count to 10. And if you're not gone, I'm gonna clear out your ears with this gun.
Lower your weapon immediately.
I'll be back. Keep him here, Dane. My pleasure.
Keep standing your ground, Marcus. It's working.
The monster says telepathically. Marcus, in a tacit, inaudible way, communicates, "How can you tell? There's a man with a gun in my face."
I told you that you would meet uncomfortable situations, but you are doing very well. Keep in mind that I'm protecting you.
Marcus says in an inaudible, tacit fashion, "Yes, Mentor, I will be strong. I will not allow my human weakness to stand in my way." The monster cracks a smile. After a few moments, the second guard returns and says,
Come in.
The first guard lowers his weapon and says,
Well, come on.
The 3 of them are escorted into Giovanni's large and spacious penthouse. Marcus looks around and says in a way that is audible, "Wow, look at those windows." The monster communicates telepathically.
Now is not the time for sightseeing, Marcus. Focus on what you are going to say to Giovanni.
Marcus, in an inaudible, tacit manner, "Yes, Mentor." They walk around Giovanni's circular flat and arrive at his dining area, where Giovanni is eating his dinner. Giovanni looks up at Marcus and says,